Hello again to another Agakala react, and today we'll be watching How Polish Immigrants Became White, Becoming American from NITN. And, well, it's rather... I'm presuming it's some kind of a metaphor, because I don't see how Polish people were not considered being white, but America is a strange country when it comes to race and nationality and heritage as far as I'm concerned, and what I kind of know from internet, since I'm on internet for past, I don't know, 15 or more years, more than 15, and sometimes I'm still being a bit mind-boggled, like this one statement, how Polish immigrants became white, because let's just watch, let's just see what is this about, because I'm pretty sure it's about something that basically it's white, but now white is just becoming American, you know, like Polish immigrants did not speak English. It's not our language, so I'm presuming this is something like that. I did hear about something like that about Italians, about Irish people, about multiple different people from... Okay, let's just go and see.
And 15 Klansmen raided a Polish wedding. Tell me why you're saying this joke, like, I don't understand.
Yeah, me neither. There's
she
no
said it was
clans
actually
in Poland.
Originally a black joke.
Okay.
And she replaced the N-word with Polak because she didn't want to be, quote, prejudiced.
And
They disguised
apparently,
themselves in blackface.
only a few years ago I learned that Polak being a derogative word for Polish people in America as well. I didn't know that. I'm not from America. I'm not Polish American. I'm Polish as in from Poland. Born and raised in Poland, lived there for decades. And my whole family is still there, and to me, when you hear Polak basically means a Polish male. So to someone from Poland, when someone says, "Oh, you're Polak," that just means that you basically, that person just states that you are a Polish person. So to me, I just learned that just recently, like a few years ago, that that's not a good thing to say to someone from America anyway. So
And set fire to Polish and Lithuanian neighborhoods. Their hope was to draw the immigrant population into a bloody war against the African Americans. Yes, the Poles are white, but they're not white enough, so they're ethnic white. You know, this is kind of where I start having trouble with the terms white and black. The stereotype that the Nazis put out, that the Americans absorbed, was that, quote, Poland has inferior intelligence. Hi, I'm Danielle Romero, and thank you so much for being with me on my channel, where I started exploring my family's hidden heritage from Louisiana, and now I'm digging into this idea of what does it mean to be an American, and questions about identity. But before we begin, I have a favor to ask of you. So 92% of my viewers, that's you, are not subscribed to the channel, and I would love to get that number down to 75%. So if you've ever watched a video and enjoyed it, or if you hate me and want to keep tabs on me better, I would love to have you subscribe. It helps the channel more than you know. Now, during the 1920s, Polish communities in the United States were targeted by nativist groups and sympathizers. American nativism countered the immigration and assimilation of Poles into the United States, leading to all kinds of discriminatory attitudes.
I'm guessing Native American in this meaning doesn't mean Native American as it is now. I mean Indians, like Native Americans from the actual America, you know, Apache, I can't come out with any other names of Native Americans. Okay, let's just go.
Actions against Polish Americans. One particularly distressing incident involved the Ku Klux Klan.
Really?
This occurred in Pittsburgh, Illinois, where the Klan had actually infiltrated the local police force. In 1924, S. Glenn Young and 15 Klansmen raided a Polish wedding.
Oh, that type of
violently pushing
Klansman.
everyone
Okay.
against the walls, taking all the silver coins, stomping on the wedding cake. Now, shockingly, the Polish couple had actually been afraid of it, anticipated something bad happening, so they had reached out to the police chief and the mayor beforehand, seeking protection. But unbeknownst to them, both the police chief and the mayor were part of the Klan. Such acts of violence were not isolated incidents. Polish communities across the United States had, faced similar hostility. In White Deer, Texas, where Poles were among the few ethnic minorities, which we'll get back to that phrase later, Polish children engaged in near-daily fights defending themselves against other school children, while Southerners joined in, calling them derogatory names like Polacks and darn Catholics. Not only, though, did physical violence occur, Derogatory attitudes were actually expressed through offensive merchandise even up until the 1980s. Okay, so in 1980, New York State's highest appellate court ruled in the case of State Division of Human Rights versus McCarris Gift Center, which was a gift shop that was allowed to sell shirts with, quote, Polak jokes on it, according to the case. While the ruling was only one vote short of actually making it illegal, this underscored the complete lack of legal protection against these stereotypes for Polish Americans. Like, this was a real problem. This was a serious problem. Similarly, in 1983, a lawsuit was actually brought to Paramount Pictures, like the movie people, over Polish jokes that were in the movie Flashdance. But this was dismissed by the judge because he claimed the jokes didn't jeopardize Poles' employment and business opportunities. Now, some of these jokes were really bad, and I found that a historian shared this anecdote about the root of some of these Polish jokes. So, as an example, a historian heard a student in Detroit tell this joke. He writes in his book. Question: how can you tell the difference between a dog and a Polak who have been run over by a car? Answer: for the Polak, there won't be any skid marks. That is to say, the driver of the car will swerve to avoid hitting the dog, but not the Polish immigrant. Now, when he questioned the student who told this joke, and basically was like, "What? Tell me why you're saying this joke. Like, I don't understand." She said it was actually originally a black joke, and she replaced the N-word with Polak because she didn't want to be, quote, prejudiced. The stereotype that the Nazis put out, that the Americans absorbed, was that, quote, Poland has inferior intelligence, unquote. Now, you have to remember that Hitler, when he was coming to power, the first group of Poles that were killed were the educated class. The stereotype is supposed to be like, look how stupid the Polish people are. Well, it's like, you literally just went through and killed everyone who was in these higher educated classes. They were subjected to derogatory stereotypes
and stuff
with their, quote, expressionless Slavic faces, unquote, and they were, quote, stunted figures, unquote. Their inherent ignorance and, quote, propensity to violence, unquote, was also attributed to them. To add insult to injury, Polish workers were given new names by their Anglo-Saxon bosses who couldn't be bothered to learn their actual names, and they would be given ridiculous names, like calling people Thomas Jefferson. But the discrimination faced by Polish Americans went far beyond social prejudices. So in 1901, a man named Leon, and I don't know how to say his last name, so I'll just put it up on screen. He was a Polish American. He assassinated President William McKinley. The entire Polish community was held responsible for this. They were labeled as potential anarchists.
That's the first time I hear about a Polish person actually assassinating American president. Wow. Wow.
Far beyond social prejudices. So in 1901, a man named Leon, and I don't know how to say his last name, so I'll just put it up on screen. He was a Polish American. He assassinated President William McKinley. The entire Polish community was held responsible for this. They were labeled as potential anarchists. And a Polish American newspaper was even pressured into apologizing on behalf of the Polish community for the decisions of this one man. However, the story of Polish Americans took an insane turn in 1919 in Chicago.
That's
Irish gangs in Chicago.
I wonder if it have something to do with the fact that 1918 was the year when Poland actually regained the independence. So obviously, like the guy there that was Polish American that assassinated the president, he probably didn't came to America with Polish papers because Poland didn't exist back then. So a lot of people, like, I know that there were people who were obviously still calling themselves Polish because there were obviously fights for independence. The fight for independence of Poland was there all the time since we lost that independence. So obviously there were Polish people calling themselves Polish, but they had papers that they were either German, Russian, or Austro-Hungarian. So I don't think any of them actually came to America with Polish passport or something like that. They were just. This is kind of when that brings, like, to me as Polish person born in Poland. It's just sometimes it's still kind of hard to understand that someone can have a citizenship but nationality gonna be different. Like, my citizenship is Polish and my nationality is Polish, and that's not going to change. but there's often, like especially in America, you have separate things for citizenship, separate things for nationality, and all that. So it's just sometimes it's hard to understand to someone like me who didn't come from such a diverse country. So
we're wearing blackface. So yeah, they're putting on the paint and stuff to try to look like they're African American. In blackface, they attacked Polish and Lithuanian neighborhoods. These were members of Reagan's cults, one of the leading gangs. They disguised themselves in blackface and set fire to Polish and Lithuanian neighborhoods in the back of the yards area. Their hope was to draw the immigrant population into a bloody war against the African Americans. The goal was to convince the Poles and other Eastern European immigrants that they too were white and they should align themselves in this fight against blacks in Chicago. But Poles, on the other hand, abstained from taking sides, considering the conflict between these two groups to be white and blacks, and they didn't really see themselves in either group. Weirdly, the Reagan cults also directed their anger at the Ku Klux Klan. So you would think that these people were like going after African Americans and they're white supremacists, but they had a beef with the Klan because the Klan hated Catholics and the Irish were Catholic. Yeah. And this just becomes this whole muddled mess of why do we hate this person? Oh, because of this, but we can't align with these people because of this. In 1921, that September, 3,000 people from the Stockyards district of Chicago watched as the Reagan Colts gang hanged an effigy of a white cheated Klansman. And actually by the 20s and 30s, this gang actually became part of the Chicago outfit under Al Capone. As Chicago experienced this influx of not only Eastern European immigrants, but this was also the time of the Great Migration, where a lot of African Americans were leaving the South for places up north, like Chicago. These groups felt threatened by the arrival of these black communities, and in order to maintain what they saw as their advantage, they sought to include the Poles into this greater category of white. Now, this strategic move worked over time. Poles did start to become considered white by their fellow Americans, and we've seen similar shifts like we've talked about in here. For the Italians, the Greeks, the Jews, the Russians, some of the groups that I have yet to get to, but I plan to. Yeah, these groups all had ambivalent racial status here in the US upon arrival, but eventually came to be embraced or embrace a broader white identity. White identity didn't even grant them the same privileges as the other white people. They were referred to as ethnic whites and found themselves in a vulnerable position, not subject to the hostile discrimination and violence African Americans experienced, but they were also not benefiting from the same privileges that the Western European whites had. And I really take umbrage with this phrase, ethnic whites or ethnic. It's just ridiculous. Like, every group is ethnic, right? Mm-hmm. Every group is ethnic, but we kind of have started to use this term. I've heard the other term is like spicy white. Where it's like you're mostly white, but like there's a little thing that we consider exotic or not Anglo enough to count. So we have to have a qualification.
Not Anglo-Saxon, isn't it?
That's what it is. Yes, the Poles are white, but they're not white enough, so they're ethnic white. Like they didn't quite fit anywhere. Now the Polish experience here is not unique. And other groups have demonstrated that whiteness is like a malleable category. Well, for me, when I see that it's malleable, it's like, if it can be this or this, it's really nothing, right? Yeah. It's not a good descriptor of anything if it could change over time. And, this is kind of where I start having trouble with the terms white and black. Some people prefer those as self-identifications, and that's good. Like, you do you, like, whatever you feel comfortable with. But for me, I feel like these terms are intentionally vague, and they strip us of our beautiful diversity and our heritage that we are bringing to the table, regardless of the shade of brown that our skin is. Now, does that mean I don't believe that people have different racial and ethnic backgrounds? No, of course they do. Of course they do.
Heritage.
But what I'm talking about is this landscape where things can change over time. And that's just not how things work, right? And if they are changing over time, they're not really something to hang your hat on, right? These categories are fluid and arbitrary and causing division. Quote, "We wanted to be Americans so quickly that we were embarrassed if our parents couldn't speak English. My father was reading a Polish newspaper and somebody was supposed to come into the house. I remember sticking it under something. We were ashamed of being foreign." This is probably outside the scope of this video, but I start to wonder about this idea of the hyphenated Americans, you know, where there's the African American, Italian American, Mexican American, Chinese American, like anything that's going in front. And I don't have an answer to this because this is something I'm still working through, and I would love your thoughts. Should we just be American?
Yep,
is a question
I think
that
so.
I have. Because, you know, if you've watched my channel from the beginning, I value genealogy and I value ancestry so much. I think it's so important to know your roots and where you come from. But at the same time, by identifying as an ethnic group ahead of all else,
kind of staying,
if we're always seeing ourselves as American second, then we're always going to see our neighbor as somebody other than. I don't
She's
know.
right
I
about
would
it.
love your thoughts on that. Yeah, I don't have a solution to that.
No, there is no
problems
solution to
we
that.
have as all these different fractious groups.
I don't think
in
there are
America,
ever gonna
but I
be.
do think that talking about it is the first step, and having conversations together is the first step towards healing. If you would like to know a little bit more about the research I've done into my family, I'll leave the playlist for the documentary series called Finding Lola that I did when I was researching my mom's grandmother, who was born in Louisiana.
That was quick.
And 15 Klansmen raided.
What can I say? Basically, she's actually have a really good pointers there in multiple things, especially the things about should Americans just call themselves Americans? Like, I have those conversations with my husband sometimes, and he's American, and he just considers himself American, and that's what it is. But I mean, those few groups about Polish heritage, Polish people and all that. I'm an immigrant myself. I'm an immigrant in Ireland. I'm Polish, but I'm living not in Poland. So obviously this is kind of like, I don't know if I'll be so interested in it if I'll be still living in Poland. Because it's obviously, I wouldn't be, and I'm not saying I ever struggled with the fact that I'm Polish in not Polish speaking country, in different speaking language and stuff like that, but there are moments when I'm kind of like, yeah, that probably would be my life would be easier if I'd be in Poland in this sense, when something happened or something like that. But the other thing is as well, often in the groups and stuff like that, I'm kind of thinking like, if your parents were born and raised in Poland and they immigrated and you were born in that other country, you are still obviously can consider yourself Polish if you want to, if that's what you want to do, if you feel like you are. Like, there's multiple Polish people in Ireland that they still barely speak English because they basically are submerged in Polish culture. Now with the technology that went ahead, you don't have to leave anything behind. You have your phones, you have internet, you have radios you can listen to. You don't have to be in Poland to listen to Polish radio or watch Polish TV. So the same thing goes for every other immigrant. You don't have to be in your country to do it. You can be on other end of the world to actually do it. Obviously the history is a bit different. Without access to your nation's news and stuff like that, everything is different. But I don't know, I'm starting to ramble. I'm definitely gonna watch some more videos of hers. This is actually very interesting, very well done as well. So what's your thoughts on that? And go and check her out, it's very good. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.